Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus said to his disciples, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, offer no resistance to one who is evil. When someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him as well. If anyone wants you to go to law with him over your tunic, hand him your cloak as well. Should anyone press you into service for 1 mile, go with him for 2 miles. Give to the one who asks it, and do not turn your back on the one who wants to borrow." This is the gospel of the Lord. When I read this gospel, I think about a novel that I once read called Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. And at the very beginning of that novel, there's a scene between the main character, Jean Valjean, and a bishop. And Jean Valjean is a notorious criminal. He's released from prison. And after his release, he's looking for a place to stay. So he comes upon the bishop's house and knocks, and the bishop welcomes him in. During the night, Jean Valjean is sleeping, and he looks around the residence and sees all of these expensive things. And he thinks to himself, I can steal a lot of these things and be on my way, and they would never catch me, and I would have more than enough money to get my life started again. So that's what he does. He fills up his sack full of all these expensive things that the bishop has, gold, silver, dishes, and whatnot. He doesn't get far after he leaves, and the police catch up with him. And they say, "Oh, the bishop's residence was robbed, and you are the one who's done this. You're the notorious criminal, Jean Valjean." So they drag him back to the bishop's residence, and the bishop is there waiting for him. And the police ask, "Is this the man who robbed your house? See, we found all of your things here." And the bishop says, No, he was not a robber. He was my guest. And he says, "Jean, my brother, you forgot something." And he gives Jean Valjean these 2 silver candlesticks that are very expensive and very valuable. And Jean Valjean, the criminal, stands speechless, not knowing what to say. And the police let him go. The police go on their way. And Jean Valjean is just left standing there with the bishop. And the bishop says, "Jean, with these 2 silver candlesticks, I purchased your soul for God. I've given you mercy. Now go and show mercy to others." So the rest of the novel is about Jean Valjean's redemption at this act of mercy, unmerited mercy. I bring that up because it's kind of what we're hearing in the gospel today. We have a choice. We can act according to our human nature, what we understand, sort of what is fair. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It only makes sense. But if you do something to me, then I have the right to do likewise back to you, or to cause you to pay a penalty. But often God doesn't work that way. Often, for example, in our lives, we do things that are absolutely positively against God. We often ignore God or run away from God, or really do terrible, terrible things, terrible sins, and we deserve sort of God's punishment and God's wrath, but that's not what we receive. What we receive often is God's mercy, God's forgiveness, God picking us up, brushing us off, and saying, "You're free to go. You can go on your way." As Jesus says in the gospel many, many times, "Sin no more." I think if we look at this gospel very closely, we realize that Jesus is inviting his disciples to act beyond their human nature and to act more like God. Whereas one of the great saints and theologians said of the church, that God became man, that we human beings could become like God. Jesus is inviting us to act more like God and less according to what we're inclined to act like, that is, eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So think about that today as you go about your business, go about your life. What would I do normally in a given circumstance? Someone insults me, I insult them back. Someone gossips about me, I gossip in return. Someone does something rude to me, then I am rude in return. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. In those situations, Jesus is calling us to say, rather, what would God act like in this situation? What would God do? And Jesus asks us to act accordingly. That is, if someone is rude to you, return with kindness. If someone gossips about you, you don't say anything gossiping in return to them. If someone hurts you, then do your best with God's strength to forgive. And if we can do that, then we are guaranteed that slowly but surely we become more and more like Jesus. Amen.